Shalom, shalom. I'm going to start off this video by giving our praise, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahashem, Rakah HaKodash. Double honors to the apostles and the elder bishops, a great millstone that rule well, that teach well, while learning truth 100% according to the Bible. Also, I want to say shalom to the elect, the 144,000 men, prophet, servants scattered abroad the four corners of the earth. And shalom to you, Akwaf, which are you sisters that are sincere, your children, shalom. And in today's video, as you can see, is going to be another video from the brother Arrows of Indignation 144. And it's going to be building off of this video that I got here where you got this woman. She's basically curious to why ultimately, basically why all of these nations, mainly Edom, the so-called white people of the day, are against so-called Negroes, Latinos and Native American Indians, right? And that's basically what she's going to be breaking down in the video, like basically why throughout all history that these nations, chiefly Esau, the so-called white man, has been trying to get rid of so-called Negroes, man. And we know ultimately why this devil is trying to do these things, because it ultimately goes back to the birthright, right? That it tells us about in the book of Genesis. And I'm actually getting that real quick through the spirit before I even allow the video to play. But this is Genesis chapter 27. And I'm going to start at verse, bear with me. I'm going to start at verse 39. And it says, and Isaac his father answered and said unto him, behold, thy dwelling shall be the fatness of the earth and of the dew of heaven from above. Right, verse 40. And by thy sword shalt thou live, and shalt serve thy brother. And it shall come to pass, when thou shalt have the dominion, that thou shalt break his yoke from off thy neck. Right? This is verse 41. This is the point. It said, and Esau hated Jacob because of the blessing wherewith his father blessed him. And Esau said in his heart, the days of mourning for my father are at hand. Then will I slay my brother Jacob. So ultimately we see why, Esau, which are the so-called white people of the day, why they have that perpetual hatred towards Jake, which are you so-called Negroes, Latinos, Native American Indians, chiefly so-called African Americans, because we know Judah being the head tribe of the nation of Israel, you see, but these devils, they have that perpetual hatred towards you Israelites, man. And like I said, it all goes back to the birthright, man. You see, with Esau and Jacob, man. And that's a perpetual hatred that this man still has unto this day. You see, and that's why he behaves the way that he behaves towards you so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native American Indians, man. You see? So I'm going to get into this video, and we're going to listen to what it is the woman is saying. But before I even started, I'm going to say fair use under the 1976 Copyright Act. I'm not getting paid for this video. This is only for educational purposes only. Fair use.
To say this is like to be disrespectful, and maybe this is, some people are going to think this sounds dumb, but I feel like there's a deeper reason why, people of color and specifically the Black community have been relentlessly persecuted. Just the things that happened during slavery alone, were insane. But I don't know, the more I learn about Black history and the ways that, people who literally worked in the government, like the CIA, all these different people in power were trying to ruin the Black community. And it makes me think, dude.
Right. And you hear what it is that she's basically saying, man. You see, that goes into what it says. And I'm going to grab that real quick through the spirit. Right? Because we know why they are the way that they are towards us, man. You see, at least the ones that Yahweh Shem Yahweh Shai have ultimately allowed to understand this truth, the hopeful elect men and women out there. We know why these nations, chiefly Esau, Edom, the so-called white man, why they're ultimately against us, man. You see? And it's because they know who we are. They know that we're the true chosen people of the Lord, man. You see? And they know ultimately the promise that the Lord have made with his people. You see, and they thinking ultimately they can stop that from occurring if they can continue to push us down and have us thinking on a low level and being, wicked, which majority of our people are. You see that they want these blessings that Yahweh Shem Yahweh Shai is going to give us, Lord's will we be of the elect when we receive the kingdom of heaven, that they're going to stop those things from coming to pass. You see, it says that this man is the accuser of thy brethren. You see, that's talking about Esau, Edom, the so-called white man, but also with the group of these other nations as well. They're all against us, right? This is Psalm chapter 83. And I'm going to start at verse 1 and work my way on down. It said a song or a psalm of Asaph, right? Keep not thou silence, O Lord, hold not thy peace, and be not still, O Yahweh, right? Verse 2, for lo, thine enemies make a tumult, and they that hate thee have lifted up the head, right? And I'm going to look at that word tumult, right? For edification's sake. And we know that those that hate thee is talking about all of these nations that are against Israel, that are against you so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native American Indians. And these nations are in a pack, you see, against you Jakes, right? So I'm going to read the definition of the word tumult on the AI overview. It says a loud, confused noise, especially one caused by a large mass of people. See, so like I said before, these heathens, they're ultimately in confederacy against you Israelites. They come together every, few weeks or so with these United Nation meetings and all of these different things that they ultimately have. And they consult about how they're going to further oppress Jake, man. You see, that's what these devils are thinking about, man. You see, it tells you that this man worketh iniquity upon his bed, right? And I'm going to go to that real quick through the Spirit. That's Micah chapter 2, verse 1, right? And it says, woe to them that devise iniquity and work evil, right, upon their beds. When the morning is light, they practice it because it is in the power of their hands, you see? So that's what these devils are doing. They have the rulership right now. Because we know in Job 9:24, it tells you that the earth is given over to the hand of the wicked. So by these devils ultimately being in power now, which is coming to an end very soon, but they're working iniquity and thinking about how they're going to further, enslave Jake, how they're going to further oppress Jake, how they're going to further, try to ruin Jake, because that's ultimately what all of these nations are, thinking. And that's their mindset. And they've always had this way of thinking towards you Israelites, man. You see? So I'm going to read on. This is Psalms 83, and I'm going to start at verse 3. It said, they have taken crafty counsel against thy people and consulted against thy hidden ones. Who are those hidden ones? You Israelites, man. You see, you so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native American Indians. You see, all of these nations are against you, man. Because they ultimately know who you are. They know that you're the chosen people of the Lord, but they don't want you knowing that. You see, that's why they, like I said, they try to beat you down, put you in these bad situations that you're ultimately in, and things of that nature. And they benefit off of you being ignorant, right? This is verse 4. It said, they have said, come and let us cut them off from being a nation, right? That the name of Israel may be no more in remembrance, right? And that's what they did. But, we know according to the prophecies, as it tells you in Ezekiel 37, that the Lord was going to breathe life into those dry bones, man, which is going into the Israelites. The Lord waking up his people during this awakening, allowing us to know who we are, coming back into the knowledge of our nationality and our heritage and who we truly are, man. Knowing that we're not so-called Negroes or Latinos and all of these other bywords that they have placed upon us, man. But we are actually the true people of the Lord. You see, the people of the Bible, right? And it says, verse 5, for they have consulted together with one consent. They are confederate against thee, right? And I'm going to look at that word confederate as well, just for edification. But that's all these nations, man. They're confederate against you Israelites, man, right? Chiefly the so-called white man, right? This is the definition of the word confederate. It said joined by an agreement or a treaty. Like I said, they got the United Nations, all of these different treaties and meetings and places where they go to talk about discussions and business and world politics and things that are going to be passed and happen in the world. You don't see no so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native American Indians at none of those events, man, at all. No Israelites are attending those. And if they are, we know they're sellouts, but they're not attending those places, man. You see? Because these people are against you, Jake. You see? And this is verse 6. It said the tabernacles of Edom, right, which are the so-called white people of the day, and the Ishmaelites, which are the so-called Arabs, right, they're against you Israelites. Moab, the so-called Chinese man, and the Hagarenes, which are the Hamites, which are the so-called Africans, right? Gabal and Ammon going into the so-called Japanese people, and Amalek, which are those 1948ers, man, going back to those little hats. You see, all of these nations are confederate against you Jakes, man. You see? And that's why ultimately they do the things that they do, because like I said, they know who we are, you see, but a lot of our people don't know who they are. You see, only those who the Lord is ultimately allowing to wake up during this awakening and to be able to understand this truth and to get it. You see, because we know that this word is only for the elect, and the 2/3 of our people, they're not going to get it. That's why they're still, doing the things in which it is that Esau set them up to do. Mainly Yahweh Shem Yahushua, because he's the one that's controlling the minds of the 2/3 of our people. Also the mind of Esau as well. So this is all the will of Yahweh Shem Yahushua at the end of the day, you see. So I'm going to get back into this video. All right.
and you're doing all of this stuff just because you don't like someone's skin color. I feel like, I have this theory that, like, what if black people have some type of superpower? Like, what if they have, I don't know, if they're just born with something very valuable that we don't really know about, but maybe, like I said, these rich people and these people in power, maybe they figured it out a long time ago, and maybe that's why they were like, oh, we have to, like, get rid of them, blah, blah, blah. I don't know. I feel like maybe they have something special that we are not taught about that is linked to them.
Right. And you just heard it from her mouth, man. She basically said, is there something that they're ultimately not telling us about so-called blacks, Native American Indians and his so-called Hispanics that they're ultimately not telling the people about. And what they're not telling the people is that these are the true people of the Lord. You see, because like I read earlier in that Psalms 83, they're Confederate against us. So they're trying their best to just further oppress us, put us down, lie upon us, make us look like the filth of the earth, you see, and things of that nature, But we know ultimately a lot of these things go back to the curses as well, man, because the reason why we're in this situation to begin with is because of our disobedience to Yahweh Ba'Shem Yahushua, man. You see, that's why we're ultimately in these situations where we are being afflicted the way that we're being afflicted, and why we're in situations that we're in. It all goes back to our disobedience and our wickedness, right? While the Lord is allowing this devil to do the things that he's doing, but it's all going according to prophecy as well. Right. So this is all the will of the Lord. At the end of the day, all of these things were set up to happen and to play out the way that they're playing out. But I'm actually getting this precept that I got as well, just touching on us being the chosen people of the Lord. And that's what all of these nations know. You see, this is Deuteronomy chapter 7, and I'm going to start at verse 6, right? It said, for thou art an holy people, right? Talking about you so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native American Indians, man, right? Unto the Lord, Yahweh Ba'Shem Yahushua, thy power, the Lord, thy power, have chosen thee to be a special people, right? Unto himself above all people that are upon the face of the earth, right? And that's what all of these nations ultimately know. You see, they know that you are a precious people in the sight of Yahweh Ba'Shem Yahushua. Right. And that's ultimately why they do the things that they do to you. You see, that's why they treat you funny. That's why they treat you different. That's why, when you go around them, they toot their faces and their noses up. They can't stand you being in their presence, man, because these people know that, just humbly saying, but we're better than these people, man. And they know that when we come around them. That's why, they try their best to try to put us down and to oppress us and, do all type of wickedness that they ultimately afflict upon us, ultimately to try to eradicate us, because we know that's what they want to do. At the end of the day. But like I said, the Lord is not going to allow them to do that to his elect. But we are coming into some times where the Lord is going to allow this devil to eradicate 2/3 of you Israelites. You see, so all of this hatred and stuff that they ultimately have towards us, the Lord is going to allow this devil to inflict it upon you 2/3, man, that are not right. But ultimately, he's going to deliver his elect from those things. But like I said before, you see, this all goes back to that devil having that perpetual hatred, and it goes back to the birthright, that he ultimately know he can't get back. So that's why he ultimately has that hatred towards Jake, man. You see, mainly Esau, Edom, the so-called white man. See, because all of the other nations, they're just in bed with Esau. They're doing what he's doing, you see, because he's ultimately the one in the power seat right now that is ruling everything. So these other nations, they just look up to Esau, you see. But yeah, I'm going to get back into this video. All right, so bear with me while I get this.
Being people of color, and I've seen some black creators come on here and try to explain how special it is to have melanin in your skin and how it has all these different properties, but I don't know, I just feel like I have this theory that this goes so much deeper than maybe a lot of us realize, because I'm sorry, but I don't think you're gonna go out of your way for all these hundreds and hundreds of years to try to ruin one group of people